It's 7:02, Monday, October 10th, and picking up from the video I did yesterday that about many things, but one of them is the hell that's being unleashed now by the Russian army that I was foreseeing. And so tonight I'm looking at hell for some reason. That's what is queued up here. Will this vision be where the AI thinks we go? Just look at this for a second. This is somebody that asked an AI what it saw hell as looking like.
Where the AI thinks we go or where it goes. I asked an AI to show me a vision of hell as a representation.
Now this is interesting as it goes on. I'll come back to it. Because if you look in the description box below, there's my Instagram is there, and that's where my drawings are. And these AI visions of hell are very much formally, they're very much like the drawings that I've done for years, particularly as these kind of compressed forms and bodies and metamorphic images, heads and limbs, and combinations of. Mine are more cartoonish because that's what I see in my imagination. These, I don't know if the AI will start to make more cartoonish versions, but I've seen this for years and years and for decades and decades and decades now. Anyway, before I go on to this, I just wanted to do a bit of reading, because today I was looking at the Jeffrey Epstein's temple, which is, let's see if I can put this up, which is on Epstein Island. You can see a picture of it. The one here is on Epstein Island. The one over here on the other side is what it's an imitation of. So I have to bring it back to read for a second. It's the Masonic imagery, the Masonic symbolism combined with Islamic architecture, and which I'll do another video on. But I just want to read about the keystone over the arch in there, if you can see it. The keystone above the arch, right there. And what it represents is a more Masonic symbolism. The famous Freemason Albert Mackey, in his Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, said of the keystone, "The stone placed in the center of an arch, which preserves the others in their places and secures firmness and stability to the arch. As it was formerly the custom of operative masons to place a peculiar mark on each stone of a building to designate the workman by whom it had been adjusted, so the keystone was most likely to receive the most prominent mark, that of the superintendent of the structure. Such is related to have occurred to that keystone, which plays so important a part in the legend of the Royal Arch degree. In fact, in the Solomonic era, the construction of the arch must have been known to the Dionysian artificers. It is telling and important to hear that Mackey recognizes the keystone design as dating back to Dionysian artificers or architects." So let's go to, this is from Tom Horn's Shadowland. His writing about Dionysus in a book in 2016, Zenith. Dionysus is superficially depicted as the inventor of wine, abandon, and revelry, a description that seems inadequate and that it refers only to the basic elements of intoxication and enthusiasm, which was used of the Bacchae, the female participants of the Dionysic mysteries, those metaphysical mysteries that Freemasons are keepers of today. Also known as Maenads and Bacchantes, in their rituals to experience Dionysus, the intoxicating god of unbridled human desire. And this is what I have been pointing out for a long while in my videos, is the appearance of the Dionysian spirit in the rock and roll of the 60s and Jim Morrison's alcoholism, but going back to Jack Kerouac's alcoholism mixed with psychedelic drugs for the visionary aspect of it, but that it's demon possession that is, you can see it in the dancing, jerky, spasmodic movements and the sexual lack of inhibition and sexualization of Doors performances where the crowd is rioting and they're being provoked into a bacchanalian frenzy. Ancient followers of Dionysus believed he was the presence that is otherwise defined as the craving within man that longs to let itself go and to give itself over to baser earthly desires, as happened regularly at Epstein's private island. What a Christian might resist as the lustful wants of the carnal man, the followers of Dionysus embraced as the incarnate power that would, in the next life, liberate the souls of mankind from the constraints of this present world and from the customs that sought to define respectability through a person's obedience to moral law. Until that day arrives, the worshippers of Dionysus attempted to bring themselves into union with the god through a ritual casting off of the bonds of sexual denial and primal constraint by seeking to attain a higher state of ecstasy. The uninhibited rituals of ecstasy, Greek for outside the body, were believed to bring the followers of Dionysus into a supernatural condition that enabled them to escape the temporary limitations of the body and mind and to achieve a state of enthusiasmos, or outside the body and inside the god. And this is what's achieved all through the psychedelic culture, through ayahuasca and yage and mescaline and magic mushrooms, peyote, etc., or large doses of THC, this is what was happening at the end of the 19th century with Baudelaire, with opium, with Poe and alcohol, and Van Gogh was with absinthe, Gauguin. The carnality and the Dionysian go together, and the lack of inhibitions, and also the participation in these pagan barbaric rituals where, in Gauguin's case, women are underage women are given as child sex slaves to the male, and in the case of Gauguin, they're infected with syphilis. So this is murderous activity. Epstein Island was where women were being ritually sacrificed in satanic ceremonies, Masonic ceremonies, much like the Kubrick film Eyes Wide Shut, which shows the same ritualistic satanic ceremonies. And interestingly, the Venetian masks, or what I was just talking about with the Tiepolo in the last video, who painted these Roman rituals all within the overarching monarchy, the aristocrats, the monarchs who were part of the papacy. So The church in Rome is filled with the same kind of symbolism, the serpentine papal throne, the Masonic symbolism. Everything is intact in the Jesuit order, that's intact in the Freemason order. They all intersect in various ways. The Islamic architecture, uh, Islam had harems and sex slaves. That's what you see portrayed in the French academic paintings of Ingres and Jerome and Delacroix. They would go, and in Matisse carries the same uh, Dionysian element of sex slaves and women as chattel, more or less. So, Picasso's Demoiselles d'Avignon, Degas' brothel paintings, so it's all part of the same culture. And it has the same end game. And here's some more of it. Let me put it up for a minute while I'm reading. These are, again, it's an AI's version of hell. The compression of the figures is what I remember a Crumb comic that has the same thing with all these heads and bodies all. But this is real. People want to think it's not real, but it's quite real. I've been there. I've been there. That's why I can draw it and recognize it. Continue reading. Just leave one up. Like this. You can also see it in Max Ernst paintings, very similar to this is Temptation of St. Anthony, that he did on hallucinogens out in Sedona. He was there. Man Ray and Duchamp were in Los Angeles, and this is back. They were expatriates. They moved out of the European War and into refugee status in Los Angeles, but they're all into the demonic. They're all, there's Duchamp was a Kabbalist. Man Ray was involved with Aleister Crowley and Duchamp as well in Paris in the 20s. It's a direct line in these secret orders inside the surrealist painters and the Italian fascist painters who were known as the futurists. They were Italian fascists. The Russian artists of the Bolshevik Revolution were communists. They kicked Chagall out as a Jew. He went to Paris. So they're different orders, but they're all part of the same Kabbalistic Rosicrucians, Freemasons, orders of the Golden Temple, Golden Dawn, Hermetic orders, etc., etc. In this sense, Dionysus represented a dichotomy within the Greek religion, as the primary maxim of the Greek culture was one of moderation, or nothing too extreme. But Dionysus embodied the absolute extreme in that he sought to inflame the forbidden passions of human desire. Interestingly, as most students of psychology will understand, this gave Dionysus a stronger allure among the Greeks, who otherwise tried in so many ways to suppress and control the wild and secret lusts of the human heart. Dionysus resisted every such effort, and according to myth, visited a terrible madness upon those who tried to deny him free expression. This is the madness. This Dionystic idea of mental disease resulting from the suppression of secret inner desires, especially aberrant or perverted sexual desires, was later reflected in the atheistic teachings of Sigmund Freud. Freudianism might therefore be called the grandchild of the cult of Dionysus. Conversely, the person who gave himself over to the will of Dionysus was rewarded with unlimited psychological and physical delights. Another book I'd suggest reading is The Affair of Sabina Spielrein, A Dangerous Method, it's called. Jung's affair with one of his patients and her connection with Freud and the triangle that resulted of this same kind of psychological and physical delights. Horn's mentioning. Let's see. And they also, of course, looked at the concentration camps, the anorexic, emaciated figures. It's something to take seriously. These mythical systems of mental punishments and physical rewards based on resistance and or submission to Dionysus were both symbolically and literally illustrated in the cult rituals of the Bacchae, or the Bacchae women, the Bacchanalia. Married and they were unmarried and married Greek women having the right to participate in the mysteries of Dionysus, migrated in frenzied hillside groups dressed transvestite in fawn skins and accompanied by screaming, music, dancing, and licentious behavior. When, for instance, a baby animal was too young and lacking an instinct to sense the danger and run away from the revelers, it was picked up and suckled by nursing mothers who participated in the hillside rituals. On the other hand, when older animals sought to escape the marauding Bacchae, they were considered resistant to the will of Dionysus and were torn apart and eaten alive as a part of the fevered ritual. Human participants were sometimes subjected to the same orgiastic cruelty, as the rule of the cult was anything goes. That's Crowley's Do What Thou Wilt, including lesbianism, bestiality, etc. Later versions of the ritual, Bacchanalia, expanded to include pedophilia. That was another name for Epstein's Island, was Pedophile Island, among the people who lived there, and male revelers. And perversions of sexual behavior were often worse between men than they were between men and women. Any creature who dared to resist such perversion of Dionysus was subjected to sparagamos, torn apart, or homophagia, consumed raw, eaten alive. That's cannibalism. That's Kubrick shows that. Kubrick is a 33-degree Mason, so it's all throughout all his films, culminating in Eyes Wide Shut. But he has the Donner Party in The Shining. That's the cannibalism that the early settlers trapped in the Donner Pass and freezing to death ate their own children, or they ate whoever was weak and died to stay alive themselves. But this is, in a sense, this is something that's it's a ritual practice rather than what people in the Donner Pass engaged in out of desperation. In 410 BC, Euripides wrote of the bloody rituals of the Bacchae in his famous play, The Bacchantes. The Bacchantes, with hands that bore no weapon of steel, attacked our cattle as they browsed. Then wouldst thou have seen Agave mastering some sleek, lowing calf, while others rent the heifers limb from limb. Before thy eyes there would have been hurling of ribs and hoofs, this way and that, and strips of flesh, all blood bedabbled, dripped as they hung from the pine branches. Wild bulls that glared, but now with rage along their horns, found themselves tripped up, dragged down to earth by countless maidens. Tennessee Williams has this too at the end of one of his plays, where I forget the name, but with Montgomery Cliff in it, and he's eaten all of the Mexican youth. It's homosexual. That's what Montgomery Cliff was homosexual. Tennessee Williams was homosexual. That's the coded message behind is the content of. I don't know, it was suddenly last summer, I don't know, it's one of them. And let's see if I can find where it's mentioned. Yes, it's mentioned in the Bible in Acts 7:37 to 43 and in Amos 5:26 to 27. God condemned Israel's worship of Moloch and his six-pointed star to whom children were sacrificed. So all of this was done in ancient times, and that's these sacrifices, child sacrifices to Baal or to Moloch or to what the false idols. Let's see, where's time? I don't want to go on too long. Just look at some more of these images of hell. But I just came upon this, so I just wanted to, I just noted myself what the similarities between my drawings for years and these AI created hell, which is completely real. I just keep trying to caution people that the selling your soul to Satan, like Jimmy Page did, or Dylan, or the Doors, they say they did, or these other. Katy Perry's one of them. I was just seeing her on another video that she's wants to go back to being her original name, Katie Hudson, when she was a Christian, and she has Jesus tattooed on the inside of her wrist, and is being interviewed and is in tears. Or Cardi B talks about it. Uh, what's her name? Billie Eilish has talked about it. It's not it's not an imaginary place. It's a real place where you go after you die, and where the violence and the torment are. You see it on planet Earth and Epstein Island. You see it with all of these monstrous Bill Gateses and Clintons and Bill Richardson out in New Mexico with the Zorro Ranch. It gets covered up really fast, but Richardson was the governor there. Epstein was given $50,000 payoffs to his gubernatorial campaign. He was also a presidential candidate. I saw Richardson out there, and he's in the Black Book. There's a reason they're in Epstein's Black Book of clients and what they're participating in. Anyway, God bless all of you. I say prayers for anybody who's on this path, that they will take a second to look at where they are going to end up following this dark occult practice.